Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 4 of Season 3 NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Golden Corral 500 here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, as we're again set for 45 laps of racing here at arguably the fastest mile-and-a-half track on the schedule. But before we take a look at the starting lineup, let's actually look and see how the top 10 in the points look coming into the race today. Joshua Sakuli on a top 10 streak, still your points leader, except he now leads by 21 points over Dylan Poteet. Third is Pichu London, who actually missed qualifying for the race today, so he's going to end up dropping in the point standings. By how much? We'll see throughout the day. Dylan Jacobs 4th, 5th Matt McIntyre, 6th Matt Haas, 7th Emmanuel Hartnett, 8th Chris Dollarton, 9th Benjamin Miles, and then 10th is Paul Minnick. So that is how the top 10 in the points look coming into the race today, though of course it's going to be changed up quite a good bit since, like I said, Pichu London, who actually won last week at the Wreckfest known as Hillside, did not make the race via go or go home qualifying. So this is going to be quite an interesting race. But let's take a look at the lineup. Starting in the last row is Dylan Young and Jake Baskinger. Top 10, Johnny Gardner is on the pole for today. Starting next to him is James Qualls. Row 2 is Sean Galligan, Dylan Jacobs. Row 3, making his first start this season, Zachary Fitzwater. Starting next to him, Rafael LeDuc. Row 4, Tim Walsh, Benjamin Miles, and then row 5, James McLeod and Dylan Thoreau. Let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Golden Corral 500 at Atlanta.
Drivers, start your engines!
And there you have it. As we are now watching the cars come out of the pits for their one pace lap around the racetrack. Johnny Gardner rocking a brand new paint scheme this week, running the Mountain Dew Pitch Black car. Brand new for his solo team of Gardner Motorsports. Actually, no, I forget. Apologize for the mix-up there. He's actually a part of Seth Cole Motorsports. He's teammates with Seth Cole and Anthony McCrory. He's in that 7 car this week. James Qualls in the Castrol GTX 4 travel car. And I see Dylan Jacobs running the Kamikaze Games vehicle, Rafael LeDuc in the Office Depot car. Quite a lot of different paint schemes this week, I can see. You see Jake Baskinger in the old Interstate Batteries car in one nice looking paint scheme. Pace car in the pit road, which means we are getting ready for racing. Boogity, 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 let's go racing. Close battle at the line, but it was Sean Galligan, or actually no, it was Johnny Gardner who led the lap, and now Galligan takes over the top spot. But you got Tim Walsh in that number 15 car coming up into the picture. And speaking of Tim Walsh and people around him, right behind him, one of his biggest rivals in all of NR 2003, Trent Dunham. These two have a ton of history, not only racing on my channel, but also on the NNSCRA channel and other people's leagues. These two have a lot of history against one another. Will we see these two race hard? Who knows what will happen. Oh, and we got a crash! 3-car incident, making maybe a 4-car. 2 of them are Furniture Row cars, Matt Haas and Jake Rogers. Chris Michaels' bad luck continues as he was involved in this, and I think Jay Jefferson may have gotten a piece of it, perhaps. I don't know, Chris Dollarton for sure got a little piece on the driver's side, but he's still going. So that's our first caution of the day, and Tim Walsh is your race leader. So let's go ahead and take a look at a replay of what brought the caution out for the first time today here at Atlanta. Well, here's a look at what happened. So they were 4 wide right here between Rogers, Michaels, Dollarton, and Haas. And it was just like Chris Michaels was getting bounced in between Dollarton and Haas. And then they come up and slam into Matt Haas in the door. Those were some hard hits given to the 77. And then they come down across the nose of Mark Lane. And then the 17 and the 77 just ended up sliding and hitting the inside wall pretty hard. As we're going to take a look and see how this all unfolded one more time from the helicopter camera. Yeah, the 17 just tried to make a move and just not enough room. And yeah, there was pretty hard hitting to the 77 right there. And speaking of the 77, he and the 17 come down the track. And the 17 hit the inside wall pretty hard. And yet Jay Jefferson ended up getting a little piece of the 87 of Jake Rogers as he got held up. It's hard to tell who's going to be able to continue and who's going to be out of the race after this incident. But let's go ahead and take you to the restart and find out here in the Golden Corral 500 in Atlanta. Well, after that first caution, we got 2 cars officially out of the race, and they're both of those cars that were Furniture Row cars in that wreck, Matt Haas and Jake Rogers. Somehow Chris Michaels is going to continue, and Chris Dollarton got minimal damage, so he's going to be able to continue on. But anyways, Tim Walsh is your race leader. 2nd is Matt McIntyre. 3rd is Trent Dunham. 4th, James Shelley. 5th, Seth Cole. 6th is JT Bryant. 7th is Austin LaPlante. 8th is Sean Galligan. 9th, David Rivera. 10th, Zachary Fitzwater. 11th is Dylan Thoreau. 12th is Kyle Keith. 13th is Johnny Gardner. 14th, Joshua Collard. 15th, James McLeod. 16th is Joshua Sakuli. 17th, Andrew Rich. 18th, DJ Curtis. 19th is Phil Parker. 20th, Dylan Jacobs. 21st, James Qualls. 22nd, Jonathan Zorline. 23rd, Dylan Young. 24th, Dylan Poteet. 25th, Dorian Facepuncher. 26th, Emmanuel Hartnett. 27th, Rafael Leduc. 28th, Paul Minnick. 29th is Anthony McCrory. 30th, Benjamin Miles. 31st, Preston Plord. 32nd, Jake Rogers. Or not Jake Rogers, Jake Baskinger. 33rd, Kyle Matthews. 34th is Zach Flickinger. 35th, Mark Lane. Then Jessica Sheldon, Charles Sanford, Jay Jefferson, Chris Dollarton, and Chris Michaels, the rest of your field, as we are underway with 38 laps to go, roughly. Roughly about 38 to go, and Walsh still leads, but he may get challenged as here comes the 24 of Matt McIntyre, who so far in the first 3 races has been a little more conservative. He hasn't gotten a top 5 or a top 10 yet, but he's 5th in points. So he's had a consistent route run of 3 races, but he wants to get a win. And right now he's up at the front and actually kind of pulling away from everybody right now. Seth Cole, who's been struggling so far in the first 3 races of the season, outside the top 30 in points, which you need to get into the top 30 for a couple things. First, to be eligible for the chase for a wild card spot if you can win a race or 2, and 2, to be locked into future races. Because after race 5, which is Canadian Tire, our first of 2 trips to Canada this season, after that race, whoever's in the top 30 at that point are the ones who are locked in going forward. So Seth Cole is trying to get a couple good runs to get himself into the top 30 again. And that goes the same for quite a lot of other drivers, as Seth Cole is actually reeled in the 24 of Matt McIntyre. And it looks like he's trying to run a lower groove, but couldn't quite make it stick right there. And James Shelley's actually entered into the fray. And meanwhile, we got a potential battle for 4th about to ensue between Tim Walsh and DJ Curtis. And then meanwhile, Dylan Thoreau trying to hold off a charging Kyle Keefe. But here comes the 42 with a run to the inside, and Dylan Young entering the picture as well. As Thoreau continues to drop back, here comes James Qualls with a run. And here comes Rafael Leduc in the 99, who's another one of those guys who needs to get good finishes for the next couple of races in order to get any kind of hope of winning, or not winning, or of getting into the top 30 in the point standings. And luckily for him, we are returning to a track he won at last season, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, next week. Maybe he can go 2 in a row there. We shall see. And luckily also for him, we're going to be going there twice this season. The first time will be next week. The next time will be during the chase. As meanwhile, lead change, DJ Curtis goes to the point. As meanwhile, Matt McIntyre is about to get bypassed by quite a few cars. Seth Cole with the run on the inside is going to go by for 3rd. And here comes Qualls with a big head of steam to go by for 4th, and more cars coming in. Face Puncher, Leduc, and Gardner all going to surpass the 24 on track. Meanwhile, when we get him come by the line next time, it'll be 30 to go. Still a long way to go here at Atlanta. Battle for 4th ensuing. James Qualls has it, but Rafael Leduc wants it. Rafael Leduc is a man on a mission right now to try to get up to the front of the field. As meanwhile, Qualls trying to hold on to 5th, but here comes Dorian Face Puncher in the number 62. Face Puncher 16th in the points. He fell from 12th after he had a rough time last week at Hillside, but he and also his teammate and team owner, or team boss, Dylan Young, are both battling up here in the top 10. And we have one Stewart-Haas car up in the lead, and then you got one trying to battle his way into the top 10. That's Zach Flickinger in the 4, running a brand new Best Buy paint scheme this week, which is pretty unique for that team. But James Shelley right now hangs on the 9th, and here comes Preston Ford in the 40 up to the spot, and Trent Dunham going to try and follow suit, as I see Andrew Rich in the number 56 working his way. I believe that would be for the 12th spot, I would think. No, that was for 11th, so the 56 goes up to 11th as the 4 continues to drop back. And a brand new paint scheme this week is 2nd in points, Dylan Poteet in the Taco Bell car. Let's actually see where our current points leader, Joshua Sekuli, is currently running. Last scored in 26, but we'll see where he stands at this point. He's currently 24th. Chris Michaels somehow, someway is still up to speed, despite having a buckle on his hood and getting involved in that first caution. He's still fighting up here for position. Right now, currently 22nd, or last time scored, but Sekuli, the points leader, is going to go by. Excuse me. Trying to get back up to the front. DJ Curtis still leads and has a decent gap between himself and Kyle Keith, who in turn has a big gap separating himself and Dylan Young. Tim Walsh trying to go by for 4th. Face Puncher now underneath for 5th, and then you got LeDuc trying to work his way up even further. He's currently now 6th in the field at this point. We're trying to look ahead to see the margin and the distance. Not really much change between the top 3. They pretty much stayed the exact same from the lap previous. Though Kyle Keith and Dylan Young are a little bit faster than the 14 of DJ Curtis, but keep in mind they gotta pit at some point, so who knows when they're gonna have to pit again, as we're nearing on the halfway point. Once they get halfway through the backstretch, we will be halfway through this race. But I mean, this is basically Ford domination up here at the front. 4 Fords in the top 5. The only one is the Dodge of Kyle Keith in 2nd. Then you got a couple Chevys, another Ford, and another Dodge. The highest running Toyota right now is Dylan Jacobs, who was last scored in 13th. But I wonder if he's dropping now at this point, as Zach Flickinger is going to go by him for position. And right behind Dylan Jacobs are a couple of his teammates. So Cooley, the points leader, goes by, and he's got James Shelley up on the high side. So all 3 of these guys close together from Furniture Row Racing. Meanwhile, their teammates, Matt Haas and Jake Rogers, are done for today after that first wreck. As Dylan Young has actually lost a couple spots, he falls back to 5th. As meanwhile, Kyle Keith just doesn't seem to be able to have enough to catch the 14, at least right now. In fact, he lost a 100th of a second on that previous lap. And meanwhile, you got a 3-way fight going on for 3rd between Face Puncher, LeDuc, and D. Young. And the 99 looked a little bit slow on that run, almost like as if he was maybe thinking about coming to pit road, but he couldn't because he would have gotten run over by the 2. I don't know, but the 99 is a little bit slow right now. So yeah, I assume that he may be thinking about wanting to come into pit road. And the first car in the pit road is Jay Jefferson in the 5. But the 99's going to stay out, and I don't see anybody else pulling down off the track to come in the pit road right now. So right now, the only car that's pitted under this green flag run has been the 5 of Jay Jefferson. And he's off of the pits, off and back onto the racetrack he goes. Meanwhile, the 14 still holds the spot. Oh, but the first car of the front runners that's pitting is Dylan Young. I see Preston Plord, Zach Flickinger, LaPlante, Sakuli. Quite a bunch of drivers coming into pit road this first time around. About a good dozen cars in pit road under this green flag run. But let's see if the leaders are going to come in. And I hear the 14 slowing down, and that means he's coming in, and indeed he is. Is anybody else going to stay out? Oh, we got a few. Quite a bunch, in fact. Matt McIntyre going to stay out to try to gain some track position. He holds the lead. Joining him are Trent Dunham, James Shelley, Dylan Jacobs, Johnny Gardner, and Chris Dollarton, and David Rivera. Those are the only ones who have not yet come to pit road. Jay Jefferson, depending on if he can cycle around properly, could gain the advantage in gaining a ton of track position, but who knows? James Shelley and Chris Dollarton staying out. Interesting strategy for those two. They are maybe hoping and begging for a caution to come out, but I don't know if that would be a smart strategy. I'm not entirely sure if that would be helpful for these two. Because of the fact that they are not yet pitted, makes me wonder a few things. The 71's in the pit road, but Dollarton's going to keep staying out. He's going to try and hope for a caution so he can keep the lead, and he may as well have almost lapped the entire field almost. So it's going to be kind of hard to tell who's going to cycle around as the leader. But now the 23 is actually finally going to slow down and come into pit road. So now everyone will have made their final pit stop for the race, because they should be good to go the rest of the way. And according to this cycle, there goes Rafael Leduc up on by. So if things cycle around, Rafael Leduc could be your race leader at this point. And he's got JT Bryant right there behind him in potentially second, though we're not entirely sure. There's Dollarton. I do think Leduc is going to cycle around whenever we come on by. And indeed he does. So now the field has officially cycled to Rafael Leduc in the number 99 as your leader. Though he's got JT Bryant hot on his tail right now. So full field rundown after the green flag pit stops. Rafael Leduc is your leader. Second is JT Bryant, though closing in on the lead and actually may be going for it. The 22 with the run on the inside is going to go by for the lead. So make that JT Bryant your leader. Second, Rafael Leduc. Third right now is Paul Minnick. Fourth is Seth Cole. Battle for fifth between James McLeod, James Qualls. Seventh, Dylan Young. Eighth, Dorian Facepuncher. Ninth, Joshua Collard. 10th, Dylan Jacobs. 11th right now would be Tim Walsh. 12th, Kyle Keith. 13th, Jay Jefferson. 14th, Preston Plord. 15th, Andrew Rich. 16th would be James Shelley. 17th, Zach Flickinger. 18th, Matt McIntyre. 19th, DJ Curtis. He lost a ton of ground under those pit stops. And then 20th is Charles Sanford. 21st, Zachary Fitzwater. 22nd is Joshua Sekuli. 23rd, David Rivera. 24th, Emmanuel Hartnett. 25th, Chris Dollarton. 26th, Trent Dunham. 27th, Phil Parker. 28th, Austin LaPlante. 29th, Dylan Poteet. 30th, Johnny Gardner. 31st, Sean Galligan. 32nd, Chris Michaels. 33rd, Dylan Thoreau. 34th, Jake Baskinger. 35th, Kyle Matthews. 36th, Benjamin Miles. 37th, Jessica Sheldon. 38th, Jonathan Zorline. 39th, Anthony McCrory. And then 40th is Mark Lane. Excuse me. And man, with Mark Lane, it seemed like ever since that first caution, he's just not been able to pass anybody. As right now, the 22 has a steady lead over the 99. Last time by it was 0.4 of a second. Let's see at the line this time. It is less than 0.4. So Leduc's a little bit faster right now in this run over the 22. But you got less than 8 laps to go to catch up to him and make another move for the lead and for the win potentially. Excuse me. As meanwhile, a battle for third just happened and Seth Cole just took the spot away from Paul Minnick. This time by, JT actually pulled away a little bit from the 99. The 99 hasn't given up, but the 98 may be the fastest of the three, and in fact he is. Almost 0.3 faster than the 22. But let's see the margin this time. It looks like it shrunk a little bit, and it has, to under 0.4. And the 98 is reeling in those top two pretty quickly. So this could turn into a 3-car battle for the win if the stakes are right in this case. JT Bryant holds an under 0.4 of a second lead. This time it looks like it's either the same or it has shrunk a little bit more. In fact, it has shrunk 0.04 of a second the 99 gained, but the 98 gained nearly 0.2 on the leader. So Seth Cole if he can if he can race this run smart, he may be able to make something happen, but time's starting to run out. Less than 4 laps to go now. Margin still the same for the top 2, and Seth Cole only gained about 0.06 of a second that time, so he didn't quite get as big of a run this time than he has done the last couple of laps. And I do think this time the margin has grown for the 22, though I could be wrong. And it has grown back to over 0.4 of a second. So right now the 22 is the fastest of the top 3. And the 98 actually is losing ground. Maybe he used up too much of his stuff and now he's starting to slip back. Meanwhile, right now, a battle for 5th. James Qualls goes by the 2 of Dylan Young, but Dorian Facepuncher's right there in the mix of this fight as well. Back up at the front, 2 laps to go. Margin was only shortened by 0.02 of a second. Unless something happens to the 22, I don't think the 99 is really going to have much for the 22, but you never know, stranger things have happened. As we're coming off a turn 4 to take the white flag. White flag is out here in the Golden Corral 500. At Atlanta, and LeDuc only cut the margin to now 0.4 exactly. I don't think it's going to be enough, is the thing. And the 98 is definitely losing ground as he used up too much in that final run. In the turn 3 for the final time. 22 kept it steady. Off of 4, and he's home scot-free. Checkered flag is waving. JT Bryant wins the Golden Corral 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. What a performance at the very end by that team. The 22's back in victory lane for the first time since last season's Daytona 500. But let's look at the rest of the results. Raphael LeDuc, so close to pulling off yet another win in his repertoire, but he comes through with a phenomenal points day in second, so this, I think for sure, should put him back into the top 30 in points going into his home track of Canadian Tire. Seth Cole, similar to Raphael LeDuc, needed a good run, comes through with a 3rd place finish. Paul Minnick, and as DJ Curtis got spun and going into the pits after the race. But anyways, Paul Minnick comes through with a great run in 4th, and actually that was his first top 5/top 10, and he was 10th in points, so breaks that non-finish streak of no top 10s and such. And Jake Baskinger, I think, was the one that run over the 14 in the pits, but luckily the race is over, so that doesn't matter. Anyways, Dorian Facepuncher, great run in the 5th position. Great run for his teammate and boss Dylan Young in 6th. James Qualls with a solid run in 7th. Dylan Jacobs with a great run in 8th. That will probably move him up into the top 2 in the points, perhaps. Anyways, Joshua Collard comes through with a solid run in 9th and then a great run in 10th for Tim Walsh. Rest of the top 20 was Emmanuel Hartnett, James McLeod, Charles Sanford, Phil Parker, Trent Dunham, Zachary Fitzwater, Johnny Gardner, Andrew Rich, Preston Plord, David Rivera. Rest of the top 30 was James Shelley, DJ Curtis, Zach Flickinger, Jay Jefferson, Kyle Keith, Chris Dollarton. Points leader Joshua Sekuli's top 10 streak ends, and potentially the points lead as well. We'll see at the very end of this video. But anyways, Austin LaPlante, Jake Baskinger, and then Matt McIntyre. And the rest of the field that finished were Dylan Poteet, Sean Galligan, Chris Michaels, Kyle Matthews, Dylan Thoreau, Benjamin Miles, Jonathan Zorline, Jessica Sheldon, Anthony McCreary, and Mark Lane. And the only 2 cars out of the race after our only caution were Matt Haas and Jake Rogers. But that does it for our coverage here today at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Next week is the top 30 in points cutoff race, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We'll see you then, but until then, here are your results, rookie points, and regular points heading into Canadian Tire. And this is Levi McIntyre, signing off.